What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my amigo, Tom. Tom, how are you today, bro?
Getting better with the sticks. I premature screen changed on that one. So one of these days, it'll be flawless, but not today. Listen, UFC 276. I don't know if I'm having late stage dyslexia, but UFC 276 didn't live up to the hype in a lot of the regards. Prelims were pretty good. Some really weird finishes. Izzy talking like he's the greatest and he's going to go out there and get a finish. And then it's almost like he's receded in terms of his entertainment value. But I don't know if that's a training thing or if it's a safety thing. But what did you think? We'll start that. What do you think of that Izzy fight?
Well, yeah, his stock has definitely gone down. And one of the craziest things to me was seeing, you pay all this money to go to a UFC event. There's so much hype around it. There's so many people in the building. And, going into the fourth and fifth round of the main event, people were getting out of their seats and leaving the stadium as if it was the ninth inning in a blowout baseball game. Right. Crazy to see. But yeah, his stock has really gone down. And I'd almost like to think, from the matchmaker standpoint, that's part of the reason why they signed Alex Pereira when they did. Because, for a guy that just stands at range and leg kicks, runs away. Last night he was a little bit more aggressive, but not enough to keep anybody awake. You need to bring in a little bit of a challenge for him. And so, yeah, that's why it was smart that they made that, the Strickland-Pereira matchup because between those two guys, either you have Strickland in a press conference who is, getting the energy back up there for an Izzy fight, getting people interested again. Or on the flip side, you have Pereira, who is probably going to be next up. The history that those two guys have, the skills that Pereira has. So they're trying to find ways to, elevate the stock again, almost like the board of a company. Like, all right, people are starting to lose interest. They're selling us off. We have this thing that we need to capitalize on because he is, in some ways a generational talent. He's been retaining his belt on a very long run. But, you need to do something to revitalize the interest and, smart move on the UFC's part. But, every time Izzy steps into the octagon, I'm hoping that someone more entertaining and someone more aggressive, because that's really what you have to beat Izzy. You can't play his game and try and strike at range and win a decision. You have to be, like Kelvin Gastelum was with him and essentially go out on your shield out there. So every time that he steps in there, I'm hoping that, someone aggressive, entertaining, and fun for fans, but also, puts Izzy on his back foot a little bit more, gets out there and beats Israel Adesanya because I think it's time for a new belt holder in the middleweight division. But, there were some great fights last night. They were a little bit far and few between. You would have thought that the International Fight Week card was going to be like the fights on paper looked stacked from start to finish. But one of the highlights for me was my boy, and now I'm wearing his shirt for the third time on this show. We were talking about this ahead of time. Potential GOAT, honestly. Alex the Great Volkanovski. It's a great time to be a fan of this man because he's only getting better. And what do you think is next for Alexander Volkanovski?
Well, so I was getting a little concerned at the pre-fight press conference when he's talking about I'm gonna fight Charles in the 55. I don't think there's a problem with that, but I'm focused on mix. And I was a little bit nervous whenever guys start talking 1-2 fights ahead. It's like, well, how much are you thinking about the current guy? And we all say what you want about Max. He's still a killer. Not on the level of Alex Volkanovski, but I was a little concerned that he was maybe looking too far past him, but he wasn't. He came out there. He looked fast. He looked powerful. He looked as good as he ever has. He's consistently getting better. And for a guy that entered MMA later on in his life, I think that pushes back his prime to probably about 30. Most guys prime 28 to 32, 33. I think his prime probably starts around 30, 31, and maybe goes to about 35, 36. So who knows? But he's just looks phenomenal. And as far as what's next, he was talking about it. I think he's going to go fight Charles. Or at least he's going to want to. Charles is clearly looking for a money fight against Conor McGregor. I don't know why Connor wouldn't say yes to that. I think Connor probably has to spend another 4 or 5 months getting back into the USADA testing pool. He's yet to be drug tested by USADA this year, which is kind of crazy. He hadn't gotten drug tested following the broken leg and up until now. So well over a year he hasn't been drug tested. Take with that what you will. So I think he's got to spend some time, get back into the USADA testing pool. Probably a warm-up fight would not be bad for him. Like, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think you can do Charles versus Volk. You can do Connor versus Max, and then you can do Islam versus Benil or something like that. Yeah, and I think that's a good way forward. So, but we were talking about it before. Alex Volkanovski, I think, is solidified as the featherweight greatest of all time right now. Cleared out the division in one of the most stacked divisions that there was, just 2 or 3 years ago, and doesn't show any weaknesses. He showed great grit and determination fighting through Brian Ortega. He showed great power and technique in all of the Max Holloway fights and the Zombie fight and the Ortega fight. He showed great submission defense in the Ortega fight. I mean, I just don't know what you're going to do. And that's why I think Charles is such an interesting matchup for him. Charles obviously being the previous 145er, not a lot of success there. Volk being previously 215 pounds, like fighting across divisions. Only has one loss. I think you said at like 170, when he's, 5'4", 5'5", 5'6", it's going to happen. But I'm really excited for everything Volkanovski. I think he's an enjoyable, likable, genuine guy. I think that's what everybody likes about Sean Strickland too, is the fact that he's a genuine guy and he's not like trying to put on an act. I don't think Volk puts on an act at all. And he's just very easily likable, and he's who you want to look to when you look at great champions.
Yeah, it's really upsetting that Alexander Volkanovski is not a household name. And it's interesting because, like, he isn't a, loudmouth of a personality. Press conference comes, Max is doing his best to try and trash talk up there because Max really isn't much of a trash talker either. But
and what can Max even say to Volk? Like, Max doesn't have anything to say. Like, he beat him twice now, 3 times, decisively in 2 of them. He's better at what Max is best at. Like, Max has nothing for him.
No, not at all. And but I'm just, my whole point is just Volk is almost too nice for his own good, because if he was, a bit of a trash talker and, there was a group of people out there that like love to hate him, like there's people out there that love to hate Colby and there's people out there that love to hate Connor. And then on the flip side, there's people that love those guys because of their personality. So, there's reels of them talking everywhere. With Volk, it's just like, hey, I know you're talking your shit. You're trying to sell this fight. That's cool. Good job. You're lighting a fire under me right now, if anything. But, he's not marketable in the way that a fighter typically is. But, good for him also. He just became the second highest paid featherweight of all time behind Conor McGregor. And he's, I believe, only 4 or 5 title defenses short of Aldo's record. Aldo being the incumbent when the UFC, started the featherweight division. And, you can make the case that Aldo is the GOAT over Volk because of those title defenses, but also the level of competition now is way better than when Aldo was, holding that belt back then. So, I definitely think Volk, he's on his way to potential MMA GOAT status, especially if he does go up and beat Charles, who we've seen beat some guys that, like Dustin and like Justin. Yeah, Dustin and Justin and Michael Chandler, all guys that, the odds were really stacked against him. And he went out there and, he did his thing in really stunning fashion. If Volk goes up there and beats him, it's just like another notch in his belt that it'll be fun to see. And it really solidifies him as one of the GOATs of MMA. And it'll be great if he does win that division too, because they asked him last night, will you actively defend both? Will you give up one belt? And he's like, no, I'm gonna fight in both divisions actively. And he's already the most active champion, 3 fights in 9 months. So, not to, keep sucking Volk too hard, but he's my guy. Big things coming. And while everybody else in that age range is going down, he just gets better and better and better. And it's so exciting to see. And I just really hope that at some point down the road, he becomes a name that everybody knows, because he deserves it for the level of talent and skill that he brings to the table. Speaking of Sean Strickland, that was disappointing. That was the only loss that we had on our resume from last week. You know, he's a wild man. He's crazy. We all know that he's mentally crazy. But we didn't expect him to be so crazy that he would walk up to Alex Pereira with his hands down by his waist. You know, he did win some of the exchanges up until Alex Pereira put him to sleep with that nasty left hook followed up by a straight. But yeah, that was disappointing. You know, I really wanted Sean Strickland to go out there and at least use some ground game, because he's a guy that's been strictly training mixed martial arts for quite some time against a kickboxer who's a really great kickboxer, but I don't think, you know, there's a lot of questions out there about his ground game. Maybe only Bruno Silva took Alex Pereira down for a bit. It's what he should have done. But, you know, no sense in Monday morning quarterbacking. What did you think about that Strickland fight? Obviously, outside of, you know, him getting, you know, just walloped at the end of that one. Did you think that he won the bulk of the exchanges, or is that up to debate?
I mean, it doesn't really matter what I think at the end of the day. I mean, there were some exchanges where he was getting the better of Pereira, and he had said, you know, after the fight was over, and he kind of gave his update, like, "Hey guys, I'm fine. Like, I, you know, walked forward. I thought I could stand with him. I thought I was winning the bulk of the exchanges. So he thought that he was winning, which I guess is good for him, whatever. But he thought he was winning. He thought he was seeing Alex Pereira's, you know, strikes really, really well. But I just thought it was in his style. He kind of walks forward like this, like he just total. You know, it's like you when you're fighting, like you want to have your hands up to protect your head. He walks forward with his hands like at his chest. It's really weird, especially against a guy who is a top of the food chain kickboxer. You would think that he would have had a little bit more wherewithal to protect his head, but at the end of the day, he didn't. Got caught with that mean, fast, powerful left hand that Alex Pereira possesses, and got put down and ultimately kept there. It was weird. He popped right back up. The thing about Sean Strickland is like he's gonna let you know what he's feeling. Like he popped back up, like fuck, he got me. Like what are you gonna do? Same thing that happened when he was grappling and turned his back on the guy. The guy jumped on a rear naked and pulled him down, and he had to tap out in a grappling bout. I think in Submission Underground, Chael Sonnen Submission Underground. So he, you know, he gets up. And he's like, shit, like you know, whatever. Like you know, I have a buddy who's been on here before who's like he really, really hates Sean Strickland, and I understand why. But he, you know, likes to bag on me a little bit because I like Sean. It's not that I like Sean because of like what he says. I think some of it is genuinely hilarious, but I like people who are themselves and that are genuine and aren't putting on this fake front. That's what I don't like about Israel Adesanya, especially his $3 million challenge. Like, oh, anyone foreign, anything that I did wrong. I mean, now I'm trying to do a Volk impression, I guess. But whatever his New Zealand accent is, like, you know, somebody find, you know, $3 million, put it up. That area has hard proof evidence that I, you know, that I ever did cheating or drugs or anything like that, steroids. I don't know. He seems a little insecure about the whole thing. That being said, it doesn't seem like he's coming from the heart, that he's being genuine or anything like that. So that's what I don't like Izzy, but that's what I like about Volk. That's what I like about Sean Strickland, is that these guys are clearly up there just being themselves. And I thought that with the performance that that Sean Strickland had at the presser, that it would have been great to see him win and then him go and take on Izzy. That would have been really, really interesting of a fight, of a pre-fight press conference. But now that you have Alex Pereira going to take on Israel Adesanya, like one doesn't speak English, one is just annoying and disingenuous and caught up in his own atmosphere. Like I'm not interested in anything outside of the fight with that one. So a little disappointing from the pre-fight press conference perspective. That's a lot of peace.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And you know, the thing is too, is we would have known, everybody knows that the Alex Pereira fight would have happened at some point down the road. That's the whole reason why shout out to our boy AG400. Thank you. He's the man. Honestly, go check out what he does over at menoforder.com. We work with them sometimes.
Oh, we do at Men of Order.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this video will be up there as well. So AG, great dude. Just put out a great article about Freddie Freeman. Go check it out. But
Freddie Not So Freeman.
Yeah, Freddie Not So Freeman. And also, while we're talking about this, please like, comment, and subscribe. You know, while you're here, follow AG's lead. Let us know what you think down below in the comments. Follow our you know, Twitter and Instagram. The main page is @_Pickin winners, and our social handles for Twitter are right below our handsome faces. So yeah, Sean Strickland, that presser would have been great against Izzy, because those two guys clearly, they have some sort of beef, and Sean Strickland really gets under Izzy's skin. And so that would have been fun to watch. But talk about being genuine and just going out there and wearing your heart on your sleeve, essentially, as a fighter. One of my prelim locks last week, DDP, Dracus du Plessis. He was a savage animal in there last night. That 3-round fight against Brad Tavares was something to see. It was really incredible because DDP went out there. He tried a few things in that first round that, he normally doesn't do. I think he tried to land a takedown, and Brad Tavares stuffed it and landed a lot of damage on him. And then DDP was clearly gassed, winded. And, I heard Dean Thomas saying this last night, and I wholeheartedly agree that when Dracus du Plessis gets tired, he actually fights better. And the way that he runs forward, it was very, reminiscent of Francis Ngannou. It was like mini Superman punches, just a 1-2, flying forward at Tavares. Caught him a few times with those. Opened himself up to, Tavares was a little bit better at a counter. He was leaving his chin wide open, and he could have gotten slept on the spot. But quick question for you, Tom. Eric Nixick, he is Francis Ngannou's coach as well, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So that's got to be the game plan that he's teaching his fighters, just to go out there and fucking run full steam ahead if they're strong, like a train, and just start trying to wallop guys like while they're moving forward at an extremely fast pace. But yeah, DDP completely opened up Brad Tavares. I felt very good about that prelim lock, and it was interesting to see how the lines moved too, because du Plessis was plus 100 when we did last week's video. And by the time, fight night rolled around, he was minus 180 in that range. So, if you're watching us right now, if there's a pick that we feel really good about, you should probably try and snag it, especially if it's an underdog before those lines move, because, if we're on it, I'm sure a lot of the sharps and a lot of the people that throw big money and move the lines, they're on it too. So that DDP pick was huge.
Two things. One, we need to get better at this, and by we, I mean me, with the super lock notification, that when we're both really high on something, I'm going to denote it with a super lock. Picket fights, we're still in our infancy here, so as we evolve, it's only going to get better. But yeah, so introducing the super lock, we haven't used it a ton, but going to bring it back and try to upstart it. But super lock denotes something that me and Keith feel really, really good about. Sometimes these may be -3, -4, -500 guys because, listen, people are betting on this, and if we feel really good about it, we're probably not the only ones. But there's also going to be those that are plus 100 or minus 120, minus 150. Now that we're recording on Sundays consistently, we'll be able to, kind of highlight those to you guys before that the sharps and the rest of the general populace gets to it. So make sure you're tuned into Pickin' Fights, like Keith said. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. We are going to make sure that we put these videos out for you both on YouTube on Sundays and Men of Order, to get that crowd as well. We want to bring you guys, and I think I'm up. I don't know how to do the units thing, but I had bet 60, 70 bucks on various parlays and bets and individual straight bets. I looked at my thing. I'm at up like $166. So, made out pretty well last week, and looking to keep that forward. Like I said, we went 6-1. I went 6-1 last week. Keith 4-1 last week. Like we've been on it, knock on wood, so far. And even the weeks that were bad, we're 4-3. So keep it tuned in to Pickin' Fights. Make sure you're following the Super Lock. And I did a quick bit of research. Eric Nixick, head manager at Extreme Couture. So obviously more than just Francis Ngannou and more than just Dricus du Plessis, but he's not like in that Trevor Whitman area where he trains like 3 guys or whatever. But just wanted to self-correct there. Eric Nixick, head coach, Extreme Couture.
Yeah, no, I figured it was more than just the 2 of those guys, but I mean, I think that's probably a strategy with like those big heavy hitters. Just get the fuck in there and start. Make them pay for standing still, essentially. And, a bit of a jump in the rankings, but down the road, if DDP keeps this climb that he has, that Izzy fight Izzy versus Dracus du Plessis would be incredible because he doesn't give a fuck. He just gets in there and throws. And, another interesting stat, not to keep going on about DDP, last one. He actually was the guy to land the most strikes on Brad Tavares since Israel Adesanya. So, maybe there's a future in that fight. If Izzy keeps holding and DDP keeps climbing, I'm sure the matchmakers they'll be quick to jump on that one. But so with our talk about the super locks and whatnot, we can finally jump into our picks for this week. As long as you're ready, Tom, as we always do with our prelim locks. And I have one prelim lock parlay that I feel exceptionally good about, more so than I have any other prelim locks in the past. And that is going to be a parlay between Courtney Casey and Antonina Shevchenko. I'm sorry. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Courtney Casey and and Antonina Shevchenko versus Nina Nunes and Cynthia Calvillo. And the only person that worries me in that one at all is Cynthia Calvillo, because more recently than not, her fights haven't really been ending in decision. She has been, getting finished, but Nina Nunes is not really a finisher. So that is Courtney Casey and Antonina Shevchenko, and Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo, all to go the distance. Probably going to be in the minus 250 range for both of those. So potentially a plus 100 between those two parlays. But I feel good about that. What do you think about that little prelim lock parlay right there, Tom?
Well, it's my rule, so I can't go against it. And I know more people probably have this rule than me, but generally speaking, women's MMA fights, with the exception of some particular female fighters, are going to go the distance. And between these four ladies, I don't think any of them has particular finishing ability that scares me. Cynthia Calvillo, like you said, has a little bit of that predisposition to being finished, but I don't think Nina Nunes is the one who's going to go out and get that done. So I really like that. As far as other locks on this card, I don't have anyone that I feel comfortable letting you guys know is like a lock per se, but a couple fights that I want to highlight. That's going to be Ayman Zahabi versus Ricky Turcios. Ricky Turcios, you may remember as the winner of The Ultimate Fighter, the most recent interesting season. Amanda Nunes and who was it? I can't even remember.
Juliana Pena.
Juliana Pena. They were the coaches, and I think they probably had like 2 viewers, and both of those viewers were Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes. So I don't think anybody was watching that Ultimate Fighter season. But the season before that, where you had Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski, Ricky Turcios was the winner, I think, of the 135. Was it 35? Turcios was bantamweight, yeah. So, so Ricky Turcios, really interesting guy. Another one of those like anime style guys, really big in anime, kind of like like Israel Adesanya. He is really interesting with his style, likes to throw a variety of different things from weird angles. And then he's going up against Ayman Zahabi, which that last name may sound familiar, from Faraz Zahabi, head coach at the TriStar Gym, trains guys the likes of GSP. So I don't want to call that one a lock either way for either guy, but I do think that's going to be an interesting fight. I like watching Ricky Turcios. He goes out there, he has fun. He can finish in a variety of different ways. And then Ayman Zahabi, anytime that you have a guy like a brother or a father that is really a staple in the MMA community, it's going to be interesting. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that fight pans out for both of those guys. But I am going to agree with Keith with the 2 women's fights to go the distance. Put those together, get yourself a nice little plus 100. Put a unit and a half, 2, maybe even 3 units on that. See, I'm getting into the unit thing, Keith. I'm trying to talk like a better.
Yeah, I see some guys, they do like that third-party tracked, whatnot website, MMA betting tips, or I think it's called. Typically, you have to pay for people's picks on that, and then the website tracks it. But we are third-party tracked, essentially. I track your picks, you track my picks. So, and
they're in the descriptions, too. You can go and check out, like in the descriptions, I update it weekly. It'll say, what we did last week, what our overall 2022 record is, and I'll give you the percentage. I'm hitting last week. I didn't do the math on it yet, but last week I was at like 74.5% on the year. Keith, you're at 70% on the year, up from the 69, which is a little bit disappointing. A little bit disappointing, but at least we're moving in the right direction. At least you didn't drop the 68. That would have been upsetting. You lose the 69 and it goes down one. But we'll take 70% hits, even if we are cherry picking the prelim card, but we picked the entire main card. So hitting at 70, 75%, and now halfway through the year, props on us.
Yeah, and that that's another thing too with a lot of those guys out there. They cherry pick the main card as well. So for us to be hitting at a 70% clip, that's really solid. And, me personally, I thought about doing the whole units thing for a little bit there, but I don't want to tell people like, here's how much I'm putting and you should put the same amount so that you can yield the same returns. For me, it's if we talk about it on here, we're going to give you our logic. And if you feel confident about what we're saying and you as an intelligent person want to put a certain amount on that, however many units you decide, for me, it's, hey, more power to you. If you want to put a half on something that we feel strongly about, because maybe you're not so sure, go ahead. We're not future tellers. I'm not Nostradamus out here. So if that's what you feel confident in, I like it, for you to say, hey, I'm putting 3-4 units on this.
It's a measure of confidence is kind of what I'm saying. Like, I'm betting on this and I feel comfortable putting 2 units on it. That's my confidence level to give somebody.
I'm not saying you. Yeah, I'm not saying you at all. But I'm saying deeper into the MMA community. Like me personally, yeah, I'll probably put 4 on this as well. And my units tend to be a little bit more on the on the bigger scale of things. I'm a little bit riskier with the wallet. But it's I don't support a lot of those guys that are like, you have to put 3 units on this because that's what I'm putting. And I'm not saying that you're that guy. I'm just, just touching on that. I see a lot of people on the MMA community, MMA Twitter, that are like that. And, they do a good job. They track exactly like, okay, if you put 4 units on this and then you'd have this % return on investment. Sure. Good for you. But we're just here, we're having a good time. And we're just trying to steer people in the right direction. But yeah, I do, with all that being said, I digress. I do like the Ricky Turcios pick. And, I personally, I'm leaning more towards taking him as a prelim lock. And he's minus 180 in that range on most sports books right now. And I think this early in the week, that's an absolute steal of a pick. And I think that's one that's going to move. He has that slight bit of name recognition from that season of The Ultimate Fighter. He became a little bit of a fan favorite out of that group. We have those guys that we remember, like Brian Battle and Urbina and
Trayshawn Gore is also fighting on this card.
Right, that was the guy I was looking for, Trayshawn Gore. So Ricky Turcios does have that little bit of name recognition, and I think for good reason the odds makers put him at a minus 180 favorite going into this one. Turcios, he likes to entertain. You said he's got that anime style like Adesanya, but it's more of a Goku as opposed to Adesanya. I'm not like a big anime guy, so if there's somebody that's more, I guess like One Punch Man guy. But yeah, he wants to entertain, and everybody remembers that moment from that season of The Ultimate Fighter where Turcios just wanted to stand in the middle. I forget who he was fighting, but he just stands in the middle and scraps. And I think if that happens this week with Zahabi, then it's Ricky Turcios' fight. If the two of them just stand in the middle and bang, because Ricky Turcios, his chin hasn't really been broken yet. He didn't take too much damage pre-UFC. He's still got a really good chin. And, the other thing that we got to look at too is he broke the ice, and he's one of those few guys that actually won his UFC debut this year. Those statistics are still really low. It was a split decision against Brady Highstand. But I'm a big fan of Ricky Turcios, and I expect a lengthy career, starting with a pretty definitive win over Zahabi this week. So I'm actually willing to take Ricky Turcios as another prelim lock, especially at that minus 180 line. I do feel good about that right now early in the week. So we will push it to the main card now. And the main card actually opens with a fight.
Can I say his name?
What?
Can I say his name?
Yeah.
Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey, as
Yeah.
John Anik likes to say. Jamie Mullarkey. Very fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. You're doing a good job with that Australian accent this week.
Jamie Mullarkey.
I'm actually taking Jamie Mullarkey in this one. Crocky. Michael Johnson is a legend. He has a really, really memorable career, but when he faces like more mid-tier lightweights, he struggles. A lot of his wins have come against guys that, have gone on to run the division. Like he has that memorable knockout over Dustin Poirier. But he loses to guys that really haven't amounted to much, outside of like maybe fan favorites. He has losses to guys like Clay Guida, which is really crazy. You beat Dustin Poirier in a stunning knockout, and then you lose to Clay Guida. But I don't think that Jamie Mullarkey is a future contender, in my opinion. He's got a good record right now, but I think when you look at like this murderer's row in the lightweight division, Jamie Mullarkey, he's probably just not making the cut. He's up there in his later 20s right now. Still got a 10-year age advantage over Michael Johnson. But this is definitely going to be a stand-up scrap. And I think, that 10-year age gap, not having a super broken chin in the way that Michael Johnson does from time to time is going to be an advantage for him, so to speak. It's definitely going to be a scrap. And it's going to be a fan favorite, entertaining matchup. It's going to be good for us. I think being that Jamie Mullarkey has the better chin, despite taking recent damage, the only guys that have put him down have had immense power behind their punches, like Jalen Turner. I'm sorry, Jalen Turner, Brad Riddell, guys like that. Those are the only guys that have knocked out Jamie Mullarkey. And, I think Johnson, he has really good timing, especially when it comes to his jab. But then you look at Mullarkey, and past couple of fights, he's had really good timing when it comes to like slipping jabs and countering. So I think he'll have the advantage throughout the course of this one. Eventually, probably knocking out Johnson. It's just the way that this fight goes. Somebody's going to get put to sleep because of their willingness to get in there and scrap. Both of these guys are just, they're entertainers at the end of the day. But I'm definitely leaning towards Jamie Mullarkey because of the youth, because of the slight skill advantage, the quickness, the head movement, and the youth. The youth really stands out to me as well. What do you think about that one, Tom?
Yeah, I am going to pick Jamie Mullarkey. I for a lot of the reasons you said, the age advantage being one of them. The fact that he's getting knocked out by guys who are power punchers like Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner is freakishly long for 155 as well. But Jamie Mullarkey, he fought Brad Riddell, and he lost a unanimous decision there. And when you lose a unanimous decision to guys like Brad Riddell, who's really well versed at standing and banging and putting, kind of their chin on the line, but also having that little bit of that wrestling ability too. Like Jamie Mullarkey's not just a punching bag, but he's definitely taken his fair share of losses. But Michael Johnson, being 36, 37 years old, being in his fair share of scraps, he has had a lot more success at 155 than he had at 145, which is where he lost to like Clay Guida and what's his name? He just fought Emmett. Emmett.
Oh, Josh Emmett. Yeah.
Josh Emmett. Yeah, got a knockout loss to Josh Emmett. Like, I just think at this stage of the career, I'm gonna lean with the youth rather than going with the experience. So I'm going with Jamie Mullarkey. He's a little bit longer, not much. He's a little bit taller, not much. I just think he's a little bit more comfortable in the division. I think Michael Johnson is, kind of been a little bit all over the place, tried and true legend, but I'm just going to feel a little bit more comfortable with Jamie Mullarkey here. Probably going to end in knockout because both guys like to leave their chin out there and they like to, fight to the last bell. So good on that. It should be an interesting scrap, but I'm going to go with the youth on this side with Jamie Mullarkey.
Sweet. Super lock. All right. So,
yeah, I guess technically it is a super lock, but I don't feel confident about it. So,
right. I think the biggest super lock in this one is fight to end and knockout. Right. So we'll move it on up to this next terrible fight, which, Tom, I've seen you've been clipping our videos into shorter videos, talking about each fight. This one can probably be a TikTok because all I have to say about this fucking matchup is that it's very bad. Jared Vanderaa has fought much better competition between the two guys, and actually looks like he kind of cares a little bit more, despite the fact that he's out of shape, slow, stupid, fat, just bad
That's like
overall.
it really fits.
I hate both of these guys. Chase Sherman has the better tattoos, but
And the better nickname.
yeah, the vanilla gorilla. But yeah, I mean, at least after Alexei Oleinik fucking beat Jared Vanderaa, the neck crank, at least he went backstage and was like, "Yo, can you tell me how you did that? I want to do that." But this is just so bad. But I guess I'm just gonna lean towards Jared Vanderaa. He's just fought the better guys. That's really it. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit it spot on and said it better than I could have said it. Dumb, stupid, and fat. I mean, I'm still laughing at that one. You have Chase Sherman. He's a little bit older, a little bit lighter, a little bit shorter in terms of. Oh, one thing I did want to mention about Michael Johnson. He fight out of the previously named Sanford MMA, now the Killcliff FC. Really interesting. Good. Props to Sanford for taking that extra bit of moolah and changing their name and selling out in the way that most sports stadiums do. I mean, what stadiums are not? I mean, you have Cowboy Stadium, right? But other than that, like everybody has a sponsored name. So
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the direction we're going to start to see gyms go. Instead of seeing, like Shoot the Box, it's going to be, whatever, Muscle Milk.
Really an energy drink. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
White milk.
ESPN Plus FC. So yeah, back to this terrible fight. Yeah, Jared Vanderaa going to Alexei Oleinik, trying to learn how to do the Ezekiel choke. Fighting out of a couple different gyms. Hendo's gym, Team Quest. Little bit younger, a little bit heavier. Seems to care a little bit more. Both of these guys, shockingly, has fought like some of the same amount of competition. Chase Sherman coming off a submission against Alexander Romanov just a month ago. Jake Collier submission about 5 months ago. Lost a unanimous decision to Parker Porter, lost a unanimous decision to Andrei Arlovsky. Those are the last 4 losses for Chase Sherman. And then you look at the last 4 for Jared Vanderaa. Hey, shockingly, there's a win in there against Justin Tafa. But he's got, another TKO loss against Alexander Romanov. He's got the split decision loss against Andrei Arlovsky. And then he has 2 months ago that submission neck crank scarf hold from Alexei Oleinik. I hope that Jared Vanderaa comes in here a little bit more slimmed down because he was like basically puking after that scarf hold, which is a sign that his fat got in the way and pushed on his stomach instead of, having an athletic, body of someone who competes in professional sports. But he just has a little bit better competition here. Tapology has him at 81%. Got to get the knockout. I think what's going to happen is both of these guys are going to be fat, out of shape, and by halfway through the second round, they're basically both going to tap to exhaustion. So, yeah, I take this fight to not go the distance, and that's what I would call a lock about it. I don't feel comfortable betting on either of these guys, but I would want to take this one to not go the distance because at some point, somebody's going to be like, yeah, I want to go home and eat cake. Like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah. I got to say, these guys are a little bit inspiring, like Jared Vanderaa. Like, if he can do it, I'm in way better shape than Jared Vanderaa. I'm not like a bodybuilder or like an athlete anymore by any means. But, I got a little bit of a gut. But I'm like, dude, if this guy can do it, I should just start going hard and training. And maybe I'll get a fucking UFC contract and choke Jared Vanderaa out myself.
Why are they doing this on the main card? There has to be something maybe in their contract. Or are they just so bottom of the barrel at heavyweights?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, the heavyweight division is like so trash right now. You have, those top 10, not even top like 6 or 7 guys that are entertaining and we like to watch. And then the rest of them are just trash. And, I think there should be like a big drive for the UFC to like start going to fat camps and be like, yo, listen, you can stay fat. Just start training MMA. And then when you grow up, we'll sign you to a contract because you can't be much worse than what we have now. So that might be the approach to stack up that heavyweight division again in the future because it used to be good, sort of, kind of, but now.
Oh, here's something. I thought that John Jones was going to have a fight announced yesterday, and that kind of came and went. But Dana did say John Jones is looking to fight either Stipe or there was another option that I'm blanking on right now. But
I think you said Francis.
yeah, okay. I don't want to see that fight. I mean, actually, yes, I do. I don't like John Jones. I want to see him get knocked out by Francis Ngannou.
Yeah.
I don't think John Jones will take that fight. I think him versus Stipe is a better fight stylistically. I just don't like John Jones, and I root against him with every fiber of my being, as I know most of the world does. But end of the day, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So now we got Jamie Pickett versus Denis Tiuliulin. I know that's probably not how you say it, but I like to say it like Tiuliulin. So I'm just going to call him Denis for this because otherwise I'm just going to be funny about his last name. So I like Jamie Pickett in that win against Joseph Holmes. Joseph Holmes, friend of the program, but it was Ugly Man's debut. So, we got to cut him a little bit of slack. Pickett did a really good job of controlling the cage in that fight, landing damage against Ugly Man, changing up his striking between head and body, kicks and punches, backing Ugly Man up against the cage, using that cage side clinch. And he has more UFC octagon experience than Denis in this one. And while he has been finishing there, I'm willing to take a guy that's been winning against UFC novices, because it looks like right now with Jamie Pickett, they're putting him up against a lot of guys that are, fresher to the UFC. He's kind of like a test for those guys. It's not a pick that I'm super confident in, but I like that he can avoid damage over 3 rounds while sustaining a striking attack. The thing about Denis is that he is a bit of a knockout puncher. So as long as Jamie Pickett does what he did against Ugly Man Joe and, uses strikes intelligently to back him up against the cage, and then when things get dangerous, get out of there. I think that Pickett is more likely to win this one over the course of 15 minutes. However, Denis could catch Jamie Pickett in this one. And that seems like what he has a knack for doing. He also has a knack for getting caught himself. So I think being that Pickett could win this by catching him or by doing it over 15 rounds as opposed to just having to catch somebody like Denis, I'll be rolling with Jamie Pickett in this one. Not a pick I'm super confident about, but it's the one I got to take because we do the whole main card. So what do you got, Tom?
Yeah, it's really difficult to do a lot of tape study on Denis Tiuliulin because it's just not readily available out there. I mean, it's even on Fight Pass. Like when you go and try and watch his most recent fight, I think his only fight in the UFC against Alishkab Kizarev, it's nowhere to be found. He, lost by submission, a rear naked choke. 2 months ago, I mean, it seems like both of these guys' weaknesses can be the ground game at times and getting subbed, but also have Denis Tiuliulin getting KO'd. With elbows, I think, fairly recently. No, sorry. Back that up. He KO'd somebody who was 7-9 with elbows, and then he also got a TKO in his 5th fight back 2.5 years ago against the guy whose first professional MMA fight it was against. So I'm not liking the level of competition that he's had, and additionally, not a great performance first time into the UFC. You could say, the same thing that we said about Ugly Man Joe, maybe it was just a bad first experience in the UFC, but I don't see the track record of beating competent opponents for Denis. Whereas Jamie Pickett, he's been in there, not with the best guys, but he's been in there with some decent competition. Lariano Staropoli, Ugly Man Joe, who went on, looked really good in his follow-up fight. Losing via submission is not something that Jamie Pickett has to worry too much about against Denis Tiuliulin. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Jamie Pickett. Don't feel super duper confident about it, but I think Jamie Pickett by decision. I think, like you said, he's going to manage his distance, throw in a couple punches, get out of range, and be able to, just kind of win the points over 15 minutes. So, yeah, I'm doing Jamie Pickett by decision. I guess technically that would make this a super lock, but not feeling the most confident about it. Maybe we'll get more confident as the time goes on. But yeah, going with Jamie Pickett. And do we have odds on these guys? So the problem with us doing it, on Sundays now, it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to find the odds. But if you want to move on to our next fight, which is pretty interesting, I'll see if I can find the odds on this.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my first point about this upcoming one, is that this is an interesting matchup. And reason being that you have a Nurmagomedov with that Nurmagomedov wrestling and pretty solid striking with a few TKOs under his belt. The reason I say this matchup is interesting is because Silva de Andrade has very solid defensive submission game. And when it comes down to it, though, I just think Nurmagomedov is going to win the stand-up battle. And when he chooses to, or if he has to, he'll take Silva de Andrade down and control him from the top while switching up positions enough to escape any submissions. I think Nurmagomedov, Saeed, however you say these names. Saeed, yeah. I mean, you would think than the A before, whatever. But he has more ways to win the fight, whereas it's Douglas, right? Douglas Silva de Andrade.
Douglas Silva de Andrade, yeah. The name's a little bit too long to fit on the screen here, unless we wanted it to be, 6 font.
Right.
Had to abbreviate it a little bit. But here's the thing about Saeed Nurmagomedov, not to cut you off here, but he also has a really, really good stand-up game. He throws a lot of interesting kicks and punches. He is a Nurmagomedov in last name, no relation. But he is a Dagestani wrestler with the Nurmagomedov last name. You know that he has the ability to handle it on the ground. He does have more of a focus when it comes to striking than anyone else with the Nurmagomedov last name. But I like him a lot in this. I think his striking is better than Douglas Silva de Andrade. I think his ground game is far better. If it gets resorted to that, I think these guys are going to meet in the middle of the cage. I think they're going to fight. Obviously, they're going to meet in the middle of the cage and going to fight like it's a freaking professional fighting. But I think it's going to be a stand-up striking battle, and I think Nurmagomedov is going to take it.
Well, that's who I'm rolling with too. So yeah, for all those reasons, and
this is a super lock.
Yeah,
I feel good about this
super
one.
lock.
Just to let everybody know, I got the odds. Denis Tiuliulin plus 150, Jamie Pickett minus 180 right now, and Douglas Silva de Andrade plus 185, Saeed Nurmagomedov minus 240. So that's where we're at with those. If we just want to back up the bus a little bit, Chase Sherman sitting at plus 150, Jaron Vanderaa minus 175. It looks like these odds are getting further apart for each of these. So jump on them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So while you're on a roll here, I'll let you start off the next one. Not that I'm letting you, but I invite you to. Caio Borralho versus Armen Petrosyan. Who do you got winning this one?
Yeah, Caio Borralho is a really, really interesting prospect. Armen Petrosyan, he is a guy who likes to stand up and fight. He's an Italian guy who has really interesting kicks, manages distance, powerful kicks. He's a kickboxer. 7-1 in the UFC. Tapology has him as the 37th ranked middleweight in the world, but I'm going to side with Caio Borralho here, and a lot of that is coming from his last fight, which was only a month ago against Gadzhi Omar Gadzhiev, where I thought that Gadzhi was going to take him down and control him, and Caio Borralho just basically turned Gadzhi into his bitch. He beat him on the feet. He beat him on the ground. He was able to take him down at will, control him at will, and the only reason that I think the fight actually ended up there was an eye poke for Gadzhi Omar Gadzhiev got eye poked, said that he couldn't continue. And then when they said, all right, we're going to go to the scorecards, like, no, I can continue. So it was really weird from Gadzhi Omar Gadzhiev, but he was coming in and everybody was really high on his grappling. Caio Borralho basically just went out there and was like, oh, okay, this guy's a good grappler. I'll show you. Went out and beat him at what Gadzhi was supposed to be good at. I really like Caio Borralho. He's a really interesting fighter. I think has enough to beat Armen Petrosyan potentially on the feet if he chooses to. But if it goes to the ground, it's going to be Caio Borralho's all day. Armen Petrosyan is really good with the takedown defense, especially when he gets backed up against the cage. As a striker, has to be in MMA. Kind of trying to prevent the ground game, but I think Caio Borralho is gonna just Kai. I think either way, I think he's just going to be able to. Was that?
I said I'm sure he'll tell us this week on the microphone.
I don't think he speaks English either, but he does have that really cool neck tattoo. So I'm gonna go with him because of the dominance and how he looks, the dominance that he's exhibited, and I think he matches up really well. And fortunately for Armen Petrosyan, I think he's going to be handed his second loss in MMA.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like Borralho a lot. And that Gadzhi Omar Gadzhiev fight, that was a spectacle because Caio Borralho, you said it best, he made him his bitch. Just basically from like cage to cage, just was like, all right, you want to go over here now? Gadzhi Omar Gadzhiev, you're going to run away from me. I'll follow you right over there, put you up against the cage and brutalize you to the point where you're going to want to, give up on a phony eye poke. And then I think Gadzio Margadzio was claiming like groin strikes and, he's kneeing me in my crotch and all that stuff. So, I really like Caio Borralho. And Armen Petrosyan definitely a step up in competition, but I think it's a step up in competition that he will be able to handle handedly. So next up, finally, we have the battle of the Rafaels. We've got Rafael Dos Anjos, better known as RDA, versus Rafael Fiziev. And I think that RDA has the advantage in this one. I think Fiziev is a great kickboxer, has especially great switch kicks and really strong punches. But this fight doesn't favor him at all. He tends to gas out midway through like the third round in a lot of his fights. And then you look at RDA, who's seen plenty of 5-rounders. Like we just look at what he did to Renato Moicano, where RDA reasonably should have been getting tired in that fight because he was like the only one giving any sort of output. And all credit to Renato, because despite the brutalization that RDA handed him, he stayed in that fight and did everything he could to not, receive a doctor's stoppage, be finished in any sort of way. And it was really a testament to Moicano's toughness. But RDA, he didn't look tired at all in that one. He actually looked a little bit remorseful towards the end of it for what he was doing to Renato. But, it's tough because Fiziev, I don't know if he's seen a 5-rounder in the UFC yet. And RDA has so much more that he can do. He's got really great takedowns, really good wrestling, great jiu-jitsu. Fiziev's going to have an even harder time maintaining the gas in his tank as this fight goes on. I think the first 2 rounds are going to be a very even fight, potentially with Fiziev winning those first 2 rounds on the feet. But once RDA decides either A, he's tired, so let me take him down, or B, I'm getting beat up right now, because Fiziev does have the potential to do that on the feet, then rounds 3 through 5, expect RDA to really use his takedowns and maintain top control against Fiziev, and do just for Fiziev to do just enough to not get finished off of his back, because we haven't really been seeing a lot of finishes in these 5-round fight night main events. I think Fiziev, he's going to land the bulk of the damage early in the fight, but RDA has a really good chin, and that wrestling is going to come into great effect as, we reach, the 15-minute mark of this fight and throughout the final 10 after that, I suppose. So I'm going with RDA here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like your logic. RDA has done his fair share in the UFC, has fought a litany of names, gotten wins against a lot of them, losses to others, fought up at 170, now back at 155. I will say that I don't particularly like the move at 38 years old to go from 170 and then decide to start now cutting more weight. The fight against Renato Moicano, I think that was taken potentially on a little bit of short notice. It was a competitive fight. And then you look at when Rafael Fiziev fought Renato Moicano, he knocked him out in the second round with a wheel kick. I think you definitely are correct that if this gets into the 4th and the 5th round, that's where we may see Rafael Dos Anjos start to take over, and definitely the experience as well. But I don't think it's going to get there, because Rafael Fiziev has really good takedown defense, and he has really, really, really good striking and power at that. I think he's going to be able to start landing on Rafael Dos Anjos really in the first round. Maybe they start to feel out, but in that second round, I think that's where Rafael Fiziev is really going to start to put the power on. And I think that's where he's gonna be able to catch Dos Anjos at 38 years old with all of the weight fluctuations and the accumulation of damage. I just think Rafael Fiziev is going to be able to put him away, and I also think Fiziev has more to fight for at this point. He is on the rise. Looking at his age, 29 years old, training out of Thailand, and we know what Bobby Green says about guys who train out of Thailand and the potential for there to be a link between them and steroids. Not saying that they are, not saying that they're not, but at the end of the day, I don't think Rafael Dos Anjos is going to be able to compete with Fiziev long enough for Fiziev to get tired. You're right. It is the first time in a 5-round bout for Rafael Fiziev, but I don't think he's going to see the 5th round. I think he's going to put Dos Anjos down in the 2nd or 3rd. I think the accumulation of those strikes that he's eventually going to start landing with the kicks to the body and the punches to the head, I think he's going to keep his distance. Looking at the breakdown, he's also got an 1.5-inch reach advantage on Rafael Dos Anjos. I like Rafael Fiziev here. Looking at Tapology, 65% of the votes are coming in on Fiziev, with half of those by KO TKO, and that just further kind of stamps my feeling that Rafael Fiziev is going to go out there and win. I think he has a really good future in the 155-pound division. He's a really interesting challenger, and I just think that he has more of the power to beat Dos Anjos, and that's where I'm going. I'm going Rafael Fiziev to be the better Rafael at this point in their career.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying 100%. And I don't disagree with you on anything. I think that either one of these guys could win. And, we brought really good arguments to the table. The final one that I want to make as to why I'm going to be taking RDA is because right now he's a plus 165 dog. And I like the dogs. I like all sorts of dogs. I like, dog creatures. And I like underdogs. And I was going to make a joke about like feet, like those kind of dogs, but I'm not a foot guy and I don't want that put onto me. So
I thought you were going to say something about ugly chicks.
Oh no, we call those grenades. But
oh right, we're from that New Jersey, Long Island, Staten Island part of the world, right? Those are grenades.
Exactly. So yeah, and some people call me a dirty dog. But anyways, I like the dog pick here. I like the plus 165 line, and I think that's actually going to get bigger as the week goes on. So I'm going to be holding off on taking Dos Anjos here. I like the experience and everything. But, yeah, really good episode. We're coming up on that hour mark. So I think it's about time to run down our picks. So, my prelim locks. I've got a parlay between Antonina Shevchenko versus Courtney Casey to go the distance, and Cynthia Calvillo versus Nina Nunes to go the distance. And I've got Ricky Tercios over Ayman Zahabi. For the main card, I'm taking Jamie Mullarkey over Michael Johnson, Jared Vanderaa over Chase Sherman, but the real pick is for this fight to not go the distance. Taking Jamie Pickett over Denis Tiuliulin, taking Saeed Nurmagomedov over Douglas Silva de Andrade, taking Caio Borralho over Armen Petrosyan, and I'm taking Rafael Dos Anjos over Rafael Fiziev in the battle of Rafael. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just going to always wait for the what do you got before I go. So I am going with, following your parlay, Antonina Shevchenko, Courtney Casey, and Cynthia Calvillo and Nina Nunes, all to end in decision. I'm going to stay away from the Ayman Zahabi and Ricky Tercios fight with my wallet, but I am going to pick it with my eyes. I like Jamie Mullarkey to get a knockout over Michael Johnson. The more safe bet in that one is just take it to not go the distance. Jared Vanderaa, I think, is probably going to win over Chase Sherman, but that's where I take my pee break. I think that one is not going to go the distance either, just because both guys are going to tap to exhaustion. Jamie Pickett, I think, is going to get the win over the competition questionable Denis Tiuliulin. I like Saeed Nurmagomedov to stand and bang against Douglas Silva de Andrade. Caio Borralho is going to show us something, and he is going to put down Armen Petrosyan. And I like Rafael Fiziev in the battle of the Rafaels at the top of the card. I think he's just got a lot more going for him, and Ataman is the man.
All right. Well, the end of the song. So, with all that being said, I want to thank all you lovely, beautiful fight fans who stuck around for this entire video for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, just like it says at the bottom. From Tyler over there at Pickin Corners, yes, happy 4th weekend. Enjoy the holiday. And, hopefully you're watching this now before the 4th so that you can stake our picks before those lines move. Tom, I want to thank you very much for being here and being consistent. And, we're out here doing our thing. And thank you to everybody at home that supports us. So have a good one and enjoy the long weekend.
Oh, all right. Well, I knew at one point I was going to mess something up, and it turns out that it came at the end of the video instead of typically at the beginning. Enjoy your 4th, everybody. Have a good one.